always been, then it's something where I'm like, okay, let's get them in a supportive orthotic so that we're going to be able to kind of at least limit the effects of that, right? But if it's something due to an injury, you know, like sometimes people will get injuries where they have a lot of pain through the medial arch, and then that injury progresses, it kind of flattens out a little bit. Then I'm like, no, I want to retrain that so it matches the other side more so. But I do think that for the right patient, orthotics are a really great thing, especially when you're playing Ultimate, because it's a heavy impact activity with a lot of heavy starts and stops too. And so getting something, even a basic shock absorption type of orthotic, right? Even your Dr. Scholl's over-the-counter thing can be a little helpful with that. I prefer something a little bit better. Superfeet, Power Step, those are a little bit better brands that I trust more. We use a product called Vasyli, Vsyli, that I think makes some really nice orthotics that can be, and they have like they have like sort of a skinnier one that fits well in a soccer cleat especially. Personally, I'm not a fan of playing Ultimate in soccer cleats. I don't think they're made for it, but that's another topic altogether. So I think that if it's something like, or are you an overpronate personally?
Yeah.
Okay, so and you've always kind of been more flat-footed?
For at least 10 years.
Yeah, so I think that it's definitely something that would be beneficial for you. I don't think that means that you shouldn't try doing some general foot strengthening and some things to help kind of correct that a little bit. But especially if you're going to be playing now, then I think it's a good thing for you to try.
Actually, you brought up soccer cleats. That was actually my next question. Was what sort of footwear do you think is most appropriate?
So that's a different question my opinions are partly based on what I've played in as well. I've played in soccer cleats, I've played on lacrosse cleats, football cleats. I've never played in baseball cleats because I don't think that they're made for it at all. And so part of my opinions are based on what I've found to be more durable too. So my problem with soccer cleats is that they're not built for the heavy starts and stops, and so they really don't have the bottom is not as big an issue as the top a lot with soccer cleats, and so they don't handle the stops and starts really well, and so they're not as durable, number one. And number two, I just don't think they have the same kind of cushion in them. The problem with football cleats is that they engineer them to be as light as possible for, you know, super duper athletes, and so we are actually talking to a guy from Foot Management who does all the orthotics for the NFL. And so they're like, we've had huge problems with football cleats because they're essentially limiting their insoles because they're trying to make the shoes as light as possible. And they're like, where they're making the shoes tighter and tighter, and so we're having a hard time getting insoles that fit in them. So if it's something that you're looking to put an insole in there, football cleats are going to be a little bit more difficult. They tend to be a little bit more durable. They handle the stops and starts better, especially the ones that are intended for running backs and wide receivers and that kind of stuff, linebackers, because they do a lot of heavy starts and stops. Personally, what I found to be the easiest to get an orthotic in and light enough but still durable are lacrosse cleats. That's what I've been playing in more recently. And so, like I said, I can fit my orthotics in them. And I was playing like yesterday with my orthotics and my lacrosse cleats. They typically come and you can find them in like a 3/4 stop, which is a little bit more comfortable for me to play in. I don't like to play in super low tops. That's also a personal choice too, though, right? And then, like I said, they handle the stops and starts, but they're also, lacrosse is a more similar movement pattern to Ultimate as a whole. So I think that they're engineered pretty well to handle the rigors of Ultimate. Thanks.
Would you say that holds true for both men and women in terms of the differences of support needed, perhaps?
Yeah, as a whole, I think that, you know, women's soccer cleats are engineered pretty similar to men's soccer cleats, and so like I said, I just don't think they handle the stops and starts really well, and so I would say that I would advise you to do the same type of thing, but I haven't worn as many women's cleats, so I don't have as much.
There's a smaller selection. There's usually not female football cleats, so
yeah.
Typically, yeah.
But a lot of women I know have used football cleats anyway.
Yeah. And so, when it comes to the differences between men's and women's shoes as a whole, it's kind of a gray area because it's like you're still going to be pretty similar as far as like the kind of chassis of the shoe, I guess, and then the heel counter are going to be pretty similar. But it depends. Foot width is a big thing too, and in general, females tend to have more problems with overpronation, and so being in a super skinny shoe can kind of and some changes as far as your normal movement patterns, and so. But that's going to be a problem with any cleat, honestly, because I feel like all cleats are going more and more narrow all the time. And so finding something that also doesn't overcrowd your toes is going to be a big thing. So that's another issue too. It's just when you really overcrowd that toe box, you're going to put yourself at an increased risk for some issues later on. Whether the myth is that that tight toe box can increase your chances of bunions later on. But there is, I wouldn't say that it's entirely a myth, but it's also not entirely true. Right. So
making it sound impossible to find the right cleats.
it's very difficult. It really is.
I don't play, but now I don't want to.
Yeah, it really is difficult to find a good cleat. And so actually, if you wear orthotics regularly, like it's nice to try and take that and put it in your cleat, because even if it's too high for you to play in, it'll let you know that you have a shoe that'll fit you appropriately. So. And
I will just add to that, I would say a lot of the semi-custom cleats now, which are like the Superfeet that he talked about, a little more expensive and more custom than your Dr. Scholl's, make something that's cleat appropriate. Like everybody's kind of getting into that now, so you shouldn't be like, oh, I can't find anything. One of the companies most likely has something that fits what you need. And the only thing I was going to say was don't give up on your inserts, because I know a lot of people put them in and want to wear them all day long and they want to feel amazing, but just think you've gone 10 years not wearing them. So
I have worn them for a long time.
Okay, well, for somebody who's totally new to them, you're trying to totally change the way your foot is positioned, and so that's not going to feel good if you do that for 8 hours the first day. So just make sure you progress into them and don't just say, they didn't feel right that first day, I'm done with them. Give them time to kind of, we're talking about a lot of progression today. Progress and give them time to do what they're meant to do.
What about the other end of the orthotic spectrum, barefoot or toe shoe running and training?
So that's something. That's another progression thing to me.
We just got to progress.
Yeah, exactly. So barefoot running is an entirely different thing from shod running, is what they call it, from running in shoes. It really is. It's a huge difference because it changes a lot of how you strike your foot on the ground.
Well, technically, the advocates of it say that
you should run more like this. That your body is made more to do that. Yeah. And so, but you look at the adaptations to wearing shoes over time, and you look at increased heel strike with running and that kind of stuff. And so that's something that a lot of people are saying we want to try and avoid anyways, and looking more at like that midfoot strike, like you're talking about more with barefoot running. So I was going to say I'm going to color this personally with some of my bias, I think. But I don't think that barefoot running or training is necessarily a bad thing to do, as long as you're not going from running in a supportive shoe to running barefoot and training that way, right? It's another thing where you're going to progress to a minimalist shoe and then look at something more similar to like your Vibrams or your toe shoes and then barefoot running. But as far as its carryovers to Ultimate, is that what you're saying? Or just doing it in general?
Carryover for lower leg strength and in general.
So I think that you can make the case. It depends a lot on your foot type too. So for somebody like me, who's a heavy supinator, so who has a more rigid foot, barefoot running can not be so great because we don't absorb shock very well through our feet, and so we get more shock up the chain, and that's a difficult part of it. And so part of barefoot running is actually working to not only decrease your heel strike, but decrease your stride length, right? And so that can be something that's helpful in that regard. But as a whole, for me, like I've tried some, and it's just never been a comfortable thing for me. But as far as like looking at strength, as far as the muscles on the inside of the foot and then the supporting muscles go, like I feel like there's some benefit to it. It's a situational thing to me. Like it's got to be the right person doing the right thing and really going about it the right way, right? And so if you can progress into it and progress your distance as you're going, that's a fine thing to do. There was a lot of debate like a year or two ago about like, is it the right thing to do or not? And I think the jury is still out on that really. But I think that's a for each their own kind of thing, in all honesty.
Okay.
I don't think it's a terrible thing to do. It's not for me personally.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about everything, you know, like I was talking about. Do you stretch before, do you not stretch before? A lot of times I just tell people, if it works for you, great. I'm never going to be able to barefoot run, I can tell you that right now. I like can't even run normally, you know what I mean? Like I can't even run in shoes. Barefoot running is not for me. If you stretched your whole life before working out and that's what's worked for you, then why stop stretching beforehand just because they're saying research is saying it's not us. You know what I mean? Like if there's things that are going to work for you that are going to be great, and then there's going to be a whole, like I don't think you'll ever be able to take a whole team of ultimate people and you know, and be like, hey, we're going to train all as barefoot runners, because it's not going to work for everybody, or you know what I mean? But there's plenty of people who it does work for and they have great success. It's a hard one to say yay or nay to. There's plenty of people that are just not meant to do it, I feel like.
Yeah, so some of the big tenets of barefoot running to me are beneficial for everybody, and that's like increasing cadence, so increasing your number of steps instead of your distance of steps, and trying to get rid of some of that heel strike. I think that those are useful things in general for most people that spend a lot of time running, but as a whole, as a sole program, it's not. I don't necessarily think it's the best thing to do.
I want to know how you avoid stepping on a rock. That's my biggest fear. You know, like I'd be watching where my feet go every time.
You can ask Josh, it seems like he does some.
You know what I mean? That's my biggest fear is what am I going to step
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. Toe shoes are good things.
There you go. That's true. That's true. Anything else? Cool. All right.
So our business cards are in the bag. Feel
Yeah,
free
we
to
have other
take them.
information.
You can always contact me via email, or I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You can call the clinic if you want, but I would say contact me via email is going to be the easiest thing to do. And we're always here, always available as a resource if you have questions.
Yeah, my cell is on my card, so if you want to call, text, whatever, especially if you have a question about a kid, you know, and, you know, like I said, we have athletic trainers at all your games now and your competitions, but if you have a practice and you have a kid that has something happen and sprains an ankle, or you guys have something that happens, feel free to ask us, you know, recommendation or what you should be doing, so we can help speed that up. That's what we're here for.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Take 3.
Yeah.